I ran a poll back in mid-April on my channel asking you guys what type you wanted to see next for our Generation 1 Nuzlocke series, and normal types won with 48% of the votes. And that's what we're going to be doing today. The rules are on screen but also in the description. Normal types are kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of Pokemon, with their stats overall just being kind of middle of the pack. Nothing really jumps out at you, but you also aren't saying that one specific stat is truly terrible, unless you make it Pokemon specific and look at Chansey's attack and defense. One thing I've always loved about normal types is the move pool diversity. You can go any which way you want with normal types. Want to make them a physical attacker? You have options. Special attacker? You have options. Mixed attacker? You have options. And I think that can be said from Generation 1 all the way to Generation 9. For today's run, I flipped a coin for replacing our starter with Pidgey or Rattata, since both are found on Route 1, and Rattata has won the toss. I have access to two normal types right away, Pidgey, who I previously mentioned, and Spearow over on Route 22. After I train the team up to Brock's level cap, I take on the rock type specialist. I lead Rattata in this one, which is a misplay. I should be leading Pidgey and pelt Geodude with 6 sand attacks before swapping to Spearow to get up 6 growls and as many leers as I can, before swapping back into Rattata to take out his lead with Hyper Fang. Instead, I get up the sand attacks and just leave Pidgey in to quick attack down his lead. Onix follows, and the plan I outlined prior, I'm going to do that now. The good thing is that I don't have to worry about Onix attacking me too much since it can go for Bide or Screech, which if I switch my Pokemon out, the defense debuffs are removed. It's a bit of a lengthy battle, but not a hard one as long as you play your cards right, and that's the first badge. On Route 3, I find and capture myself a Jigglypuff. Wigglytuff definitely pulled its weight in the Fairy-type Nuzlocke I did a while back, and it wasn't terrible in a solo run last summer, and I'm hoping I can give it a bit more screen time in this run, along with our next capture, Clefairy, who I find in Mount Moon. Clefable is one of those Pokemon I just keep putting off to do a solo run with, just due to working on other projects, but I need to get around to that one this summer. Upon arriving in Cerulean, we have a few evolutions that take place under Misty's level cap, with Pidgey evolving into Pidgeotto, Spearow evolving into Fearow, and Rattata evolving into Raticate. I decide to take on Misty right away and lead Raticate in this one, who easily one-shots Staryu with Hyper Fang thanks to a crit, but things go south against Starmie quickly. It outspeeds and gets a massive critical hit with Bubble Beam, bringing my Rat to 9 HP, as Hyper Fang does about a third. I swap to Pidgeotto and my plan is to get up as many sand attacks as I can, which is 3 before I have to swap to Fearow, since I don't want to lose Pidgeotto like I did in the Flying Nuzlocke. The sand does help me out some with a few misses, and things get close even with Fearow, but it pulls out the win with 15 HP remaining. I didn't think Misty would have me sweating. Something that could have helped me out though, had I remembered, would be evolving Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, since it does get Defense Curl, a badge boosting move, at level 19. Rival 2 is next, and this battle is a cakewalk compared to Misty. I lead Pidgeotto against his, and I'm not going to bother narrating this one. I sweep his team using only Quick Attack. That's it. It's my best move in terms of damage output, it's stab, and has priority. I can't complain. I spent a while in this grass on Route 25 looking for Meowth, but I had my encounters wrong. I felt slightly stupid because I really should have double checked the encounter tables, but I thought you watching this might get a laugh out of it. And hey, maybe someone at home has made the same mistake. I do eventually find a Meowth on Route 5 once I make my way there, and if this were Fire Red with the pickup ability, I would be farming TM10 hidden power for my entire party. Down on the SSN, it's the usual errands. Grab the TM for Body Slam, the rest TM, crush the rival, trade a spare Spearow I caught for Dux the Farfetch'd, and take on Lieutenant Surge. Because I have Dig and Raticate is faster than all of his electric types, this is just a one-shot sweep. A much easier battle compared to Misty. With our level cap increasing once again, I decide now it's time to evolve Clefairy into Clefable. As I enter the mid-game, things are going to start getting interesting. By that, I mean I'm going to have access to a lot more TMs and even more Pokemon, and it's going to be a bit hard deciding who should learn what move, who to take for the league or a certain battle, and all that other good stuff. At the time I was playing this, I thought about trying to show off Pokemon I haven't used, or Pokemon who didn't make it to the end of a run prior. Looking at you, Pidgeotto. A Pokemon like Snorlax will have some screen time, but I don't think I'm going to take it to the league with me to try and make things a little harder on myself. Although if I do manage to capture something rare like Tauros, Kangaskhan, or Chansey, I might have to use that on principle. Once I reach Celadon City, we can grab an encounter within the city, Eevee. I grabbed this completely forgetting about Porygon, and I'm going to make an effort to try and get Porygon for the purpose of we're doing a normal type Nuzlocke. Even though Eevee is technically my encounter, but let's just pretend this never happened. Eevee wouldn't see any screen time anyway, because I'll be real, unless you evolve it, it's useless. I do my shopping and make sure to grab the 3 TMs from the little girl on the roof. West of the city, I can capture myself a Doduo before opening up the path to Saffron and grabbing the TM for Psychic. Before going through the Rocket Hideout though, let's take on Erica, and this battle is a joint effort. I lead Ducks to try and get it some screen time since it didn't see much in the Flying Nuzlocke. Erica starts with a Poison Powder, which is better than Sleep Powder or Stun Spore, and I go for Sand Attack hoping Victory Bell will miss its next attack. My plan was to set up with a Swords Dance or two and hopefully sweep, but Victory Bell had other plans. It hits me with Wrap over and over and over and over, and the next thing I know, Farfetch'd is down to its last 2 hit points, and hasn't done a single point of damage to her lead. I swap in Raticate, whom Victory Bell poisons with Poison Powder, and then I get a bit lucky. I go for Ice Beam, which was actually a misclick, but I freeze the Victory Bell. From here, I swap in Fearow, who has the type advantage over Erica's Pokemon, and maybe I should have just led with this thing, possibly taught it Fly, and I would have had a much easier time. But it's alright, Peck is more than enough to get the job done. Before entering the Rocket Hideout, we do have an evolution, as Meowth evolves into a Persian. In the Rocket Hideout, I can grab a TM I don't use too often, but I imagine is going to be useful in this run and when I play other Pokemon in the future, which is TM10 Double Edge. We have our first of 3 battles against Giovanni, and although Clefable got poisoned in the battle prior, I'm not worried. I have Bubble Beam for the rock types and Thunderbolt 2-shots Kangaskhan. It's off to Pokemon Tower now, and this rival battle is the Fearow show. I taught Fearow the Double Edge TM I picked up in the Rocket Hideout, which does work against the rival. I did get slightly nervous when I didn't one-shot Gyarados, expecting to see a Hydro Pump from this thing, but it goes for Leer. I can finish it and the Kadabra before I swap to Clefable to finish off his final Pokemon, Charmeleon. Let me just say, I'm glad Raticate can learn Dig. It makes the ghost types that much easier, although I do have other options like getting Drill Peck with Dodrio or Fearow. After rescuing Mr. Fuji, I head down to Route 12 and after a lengthy battle, I capture Snorlax. I enter the Safari Zone expecting to come back for an encounter later on, but I encounter Chansey as the 5th wild Pokemon I see. If I capture this thing, I'm using it, and first ball, we get it. I said earlier if I got any of the Safari Zone Pokemon, I'd use them on principle. I'm standing on that. Before taking on Koga, we have 2 evolutions that take place, with Doduo evolving into Dodrio and Pidgeotto evolving into Pidgeot. I mentioned earlier Snorlax would have some screen time. Aside from making it my HM user for both Surf and Strength, it's also going to be the main Pokemon I use against Koga, and it's going to be a pretty simple battle up until Weezing. I just set up Amnesia and Surf one-shots the first 3 Pokemon. Against Weezing though, it gets a massive critical hit with Sludge to bring our big boy Snorlax down to 30 HP, and even with a +6 Surf, it only does about 2/3 to Weezing. I wasn't sure what to swap to, but I bring out Raticate because it has super effective Dig. Weezing thankfully goes for Sludge instead of blowing up, which does just under half to Raticate. I can go for Dig the next turn and finish off the toxic balls of gas. Now that I'm able to use Surf outside of battle, I head down to the Seafoam Islands. There is one specific encounter I want here. I'm going to have to walk around until my Repel runs out, and thanks to the power of video editing, I can just cut right to the capture, a Slowpoke. I then candy it up to evolve it into Slowbro, to then flip it in a trade with a guy west of Fuchsia for Mark the Lickitung. I'm going to head down to Cinnabar now. I figured I can give Snorlax one last battle before it becomes just an HM user. After all, Surf and Amnesia will decimate Blaine. In the mansion, I'm going to grab the Blizzard and Solar Beam TMs to give my party more move diversity. I also made a pit stop to Silphco to grab both the Earthquake and Swords Dance TM, both of which Lickitung can learn. I also stopped by the power plant to grab the TM for Thunder. I wish Generation 1 was like the later generations where you have access to multiple copies of decent TMs. I would love to have access to multiple Blizzards or even Fire Blasts in this run. Or heck, Ice Beam and Flamethrower to really sweeten the pot. Or the Elemental Punches. I feel like doing a normal Nuzlocke is going to be really fun in Generation 2. Which, speaking of Generation 2, I was thinking of doing Fire for the next Nuzlocke in that one, since it failed in Generation 1. I also thought about Dark types. I had an idea with that one since Houndour and Murkrow are locked behind Kanto. I've been thinking about giving myself one of them as the starter determined by a coin flip, and the other by egg after the second gym. Since I only have 5 encounters and 3 are locked behind Kanto, let me know your thoughts on all that. I've been rambling long enough though that I didn't even bother narrating the Blaine battle. It was just setup and sweep. So now it's time to head back to Silphco and take on Rival 5. I lead Clefable in this one. Pidgeot is faster and opens with a sand attack. Lovely. When the sand is working, it sucks. But when it's not, I can 2-shot his lead, 1-shot the following execute with Fire Blast, which I taught to Clefable after beating Blaine, and 1-shot Gyarados with Thunderbolt before moving on to Alakazam. It's faster and gets a massive critical hit with Psybeam, as Fire Blast misses. The poison damage brings me to 13 HP, and I swap to Mark the Lickitung to make its battle debut. My thought process was that one Swords Dance should be more than enough for both Alakazam and Charizard, until Alakazam gets another crit with Psybeam to bring Mark to 18 HP. I can easily one-shot Alakazam with Body Slam, but against Charizard I need to swap, so I bring in Wigglytuff. I try putting the fire-breathing lizard to sleep before saying screw it and landing a Thunder, before finishing his ace with a Tri-attack. I have a feeling that Alakazam is going to be a problem later on. We have our second battle against Giovanni, and it's funny to say, but having Bubble Beam on Clefable's Learn set still actually helps out against both his Rock-type Rhyhorn and the Ground-type Nidoqueen. I have Thunderbolt and Fire Blast for the other 2 Pokemon, and Giovanni still isn't a challenge. It's the home stretch in terms of gym badges, starting with Sabrina. This one is an easy one for Lickitung though. I don't get hit with any Psychics or Psybeams, which definitely helps, and I just need to set up Swords Dance, along with some defense curls for the extra badge boost for speed, and sweep with Body Slam. Last is Giovanni, and I decide to let Chansey stretch her legs in this one. I will say, I got a bit nervous when I got hit by Slash from Dugtrio and Thrash from Nidoking. I didn't bother with any setup in this battle. I did have Clefable as an option to swap to in case Chansey got too low. It's time for Rival 6. I lead Lickitung in this one, and my plan is simple: set up and sweep. His lead Pidgeot no longer has Sand Attack, so I don't have to worry about the possibility of missing attacks. The problem is that Lickitung is slow, so I'm going to need extra setup to outspeed, but since it's also a traded Pokemon, it levels up quickly, and all the setup I just did for badge boost purposes, I level up right before Alakazam. I debated swapping out to another Pokemon like Clefable or Wigglytuff, and decided, nah, let's ride it out. Alakazam goes for Psychic, and thank God we don't see a critical hit, because I would have lost Lickitung here. I can knock it out, but I'm not going to outspeed Charizard, so I swap in Clefable. 2 Thunderbolts are enough to take down the fire-breathing lizard, and it's on to the league. Deathless. Before I head out though, I told you guys I was going to get Porygon, and you know what? I'm using it on the team for a bit of an extra challenge. No stat experience training, no vitamins, just straight up candied to the level cap. After giving the rest of the team some stat experience training and vitamins though, this is what we're working with for the league. I mentioned earlier that as an extra challenge, I wasn't going to bring Snorlax, since with it, it's just set up Amnesia, teach it Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Earthquake, and you can essentially sweep. I want to try to use some Pokemon that haven't gotten much screen time, even though we have seen a bit of Lickitung and Clefable in this run, but I don't want to handicap myself too hard. Anyway, we have Mark the Lickitung with Body Slam, Earthquake, Defense Curl, and Swords Dance. Clefable, who shined a bit in our Fairy-type Nuzlocke but was really overshadowed by Mr. Mime with Bubble Beam, Thunderbolt, Sing, and Fire Blast. One thing I did with both Clefable and Chansey, I know both of these Pokemon can learn Minimize. Clefable for this run's purpose can only learn it as a Clefairy, and to prevent the super easy cheesy strats, I made sure neither Pokemon has that move. As you guys know, evasion boosting moves are extremely broken in Generation 1, and being that every Pokemon gets access to Double Team, and it's a TM you can purchase from the Celadon department store, it could make a run like this extremely boring and easy. Normally in my solo runs, if a Pokemon learns an evasion boosting move by level up, I allow it, but I wanted to add a bit of an extra challenge to this Nuzlocke. Next up we have Wigglytuff, the one tough puff making its third appearance in a video over the last year with Tri-Attack, Sing, Thunder, and Defense Curl. Chansey, our hopefully special sweeper, with Psychic, Solar Beam, Defense Curl, and Blizzard. Porygon, the digital duck, called up from the minor leagues with Recover, Sharpen, Tri-Attack, and Psybeam. I have no good TMs left over, so I had to make do with its level up learn set. And finally, our starter Raticate, who I feel like we haven't seen since Celadon City, with Dig, Ice Beam, Hyper Fang, and Quick Attack. I could have taught it Super Fang, which I feel like would have had a bit more use over Quick Attack, but it's okay. This is the team. Will this run remain deathless, or have I handicapped myself too much? Let's find out. Up first is Lorelei, the Ice-type specialist. It's a good thing half of her team is also part Water-type. I lead Clefable in this one just because it has Fire Blast as well, which will absolutely melt Lorelei's Jinx. If I had Minimize on my learn set, I would just need to set up 2, maybe 3 times, and this would be a clean sweep. I take very little damage back in this one though, and we can just move on. Bruno on paper is a dangerous matchup for my normal type team. I almost brought Pidgeot or Fearow just for him, and as a backup to Agatha, but Porygon, the digital duck fresh off a stint in AAA, pitches the shutout against Bruno. I set up with Sharpen for maximum badge boost, and even go for Recover on the first Onix, just to play it extremely safe, and while Machamp had a chance to hit me with something like Submission, it chooses Fissure, which can't hit me since I'm faster. Never change, Bruno. Agatha is next, and you think with a team of normal types, since you resist her ghost moves, until you remember that Nightshade still hits normal types in Generation 1, that this battle's pretty easy, and for the most part it is. Her ghosts are quite fast, but thankfully our starter Raticate is faster. It also has Dig, which has super effective damage against 4 of her 5 Pokemon. However, when I fail to knock out Arbok with a Dig is when things begin to go south for our rat. It paralyzes me with Glare, and I decide to roll the dice by staying in. I have priority Quick Attack to knock it out and move on to the final Gengar. It moves first and goes for Confuse Ray, and Raticate hits itself. Since a Nightshade will KO me, I have to swap to Chansey, who has super effective Psychic and plenty of HP to finish off Agatha's final ghost. Last is Lance. Typically when you have Ice Beam and Thunderbolt, it's a foregone conclusion. However, Lance says, not so fast, big dog. Gyarados opens with a Hydro Pump that gets a massive critical hit, leaving Wigglytuff on low red health, as Thunder, which is 4 times super effective, doesn't one-shot Lance's lead. I was a little stunned here. I swap in Chansey, and looking back, this wasn't the correct choice. Lance heals up his lead with a Hyper Potion and then hits my already defensive frail Pokemon with a Leer, and with how little damage Blizzard did there, I swapped to Clefable, who was the correct choice, and who I should have swapped to in the beginning. Unfortunately, I swap into a Hyper Beam to the face, which does half. I've got 2 turns thanks to the recharge turn though, but I only need 1 to take out his lead, and against his first Dragonair, I'm going to put it to sleep and swap in Lickitung. I'm hoping setting up to +6, along with some extra badge boost thanks to Defense Curl on the side, will be enough. Unfortunately, my first use of Body Slam crits. This lets the Dragonair chip me down some with Dragon Rage before I take it out and the second one. And now we have Aerodactyl, and this thing caused problems. It doesn't have the greatest defense stat for a rock type, and it's also extremely fast. It moves first and hits Takedown, which scores a critical hit to leave me on low red health, as Body Slam does the same to it. Lance heals it up with a Hyper Potion. I choose Body Slam again, hoping for paralysis, which I don't get. If I were to swap anything else else in. If Aerodactyl were to crit with Hyper Beam, it would one-shot anything I throw at it. So I make the painful choice to leave Mark in, and Aerodactyl takes it out for the first death of the run. I bring in Raticate since it has super effective Ice Beam and is my fastest Pokemon, but surprise surprise, Aerodactyl is faster. It fires off another Hyper Beam, which crits and 100 to 0s my starter for the second death. Things are looking a little grim now. I really didn't know what to throw at this thing, so I bring in Porygon. I get lucky with Aerodactyl going for Supersonic and failing, but Psybeam fails to take out the prehistoric Pokemon. It fires off another Hyper Beam that thankfully doesn't crit, allowing Porygon to finish it and move on to Lance's ace. I should have swapped immediately here, but I had a bit of hope. I recover up and try to get lucky with Psybeam causing confusion, which it doesn't. After an agility and barrier, Dragonite's defenses and speed are set up, and it decides to end Porygon with a Hyper Beam. This is bad, because Hyper Beam will end the run here if Dragonite chooses to go for it over the next 3 turns. But thankfully this is Gen 1, and after a miss from Slam, Chansey fires off a Blizzard to finish his ace. I only have half my team remaining to take down the Champion 6 Pokemon. Will this be the first run that dies at the Champion? Let's find out. Against the Champion, I'm going to lead Wigglytuff against his Pidgeot. I've taught Mimic over Sing, and perhaps this could have been a mistake, but this battle starts in the worst way possible. I miss my first Thunder after taking a Wing attack. Pidgeot then mirror moves it back at me as I miss my second, and as it begins to charge for Sky Attack, I hit, but don't one-shot. Great. Thinking I can tank the Sky Attack, which I do, I set up a Defense Curl to try and Badge Boost for Tri Attack to get the knockout. But I say screw it and roll the dice with Thunder, which does hit and knocks out his lead. Alakazam is next, and if this thing decides to attack, it's goodbye Wigglytuff. We get a turn 1 Recover. So far so good, and Recover is the exact move I want to mimic from this thing. Then on turn 2, we get Reflect. Perfect. Thanks to Alakazam going for Reflect and Recover over and over, I can heal up to full, set up some defense curls, and have a bit of a slow battle with it before eventually taking it out. Rhydon is next, and the only move I have to hit this thing is Tri Attack, which is dealing pathetic damage. I swap to Chansey and get some setups in with defense curl before trolling this thing with a Solar Beam and taking it out. Exeggutor follows, and thanks to my setup, Blizzard one-shots it, which brings me to my prior nightmare Gyarados. Blizzard looks like it's about a 4-hit KO, but instead of keeping my foot on the gas with Blizzard or trying Psychic for special drops, I go for Defense Curl to cancel out the Leer from the previous turn, and Gyarados makes me pay, going for Hyper Beam, which gets a critical hit bypassing my stat boost, and we have our 4th death of the run. Gyarados is faster than my 2 remaining Pokemon, and a crit will probably one-shot both. I bring in Clefable since Thunderbolt has higher accuracy than Thunder, and Gyarados right on cue goes for Hyper Beam, but it doesn't crit and only does half. Thunderbolt connects finishing it, and last is Charizard, and while it's faster, it throws the battle, going for Rage immediately. Because of this, Clefable can get the 2-shot with Thunderbolt, and that's another run complete. We did it, and that was quite the nail-biter. I know in a lot of these Generation 1 Nuzlocks, it's been a pretty easy time through the league, with some unlucky deaths here and there, but this league brought me back to the Rock-type Nuzlocke we did back in November. Back against the wall, the computer having my fate in their hands, only to make a boneheaded play. It was a bit refreshing and gave me an idea for another Nuzlocke, a Zombie Lock, where I can only use Pokemon that I have previously lost in my prior attempts. Let me guys know what you think about that. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe not. If you're interested, here's a list of Pokemon that I've lost in all of my Generation 1 runs to date at the release of this video. This includes the Pokemon Yellow Ashlock and my Little Lock, and we have quite the variety here. It could make for a good run, and I will allow any Pokemon on this list to be the evolution line, just for a bit more variety. As always, thank you guys for the continued support on the channel. We've only got 2 types left, Ground and Fighting, although there's been a lot of noise to see the Ghost and Dragon type Nuzlocks. Maybe I'll do those in yellow, since there is a slightly higher level cap. It will really help out the Ghost type Nuzlocke. Special shout out to my channel members, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Take care everybody.